Stop for 1 second and look at your life, not the one you post about, but the one you actually live when the lights are off. Most people are dying a slow death by should, but should is a dream without a heartbeat. If you're tired of settling for a floor that's too low, it's time to stop negotiating with your excuses and start demanding a standard that reflects your true power. The distinction between a should and a must is the invisible line that separates a life of quiet desperation from a life of extraordinary achievement. Most people carry around a heavy bag of shoulds like a burden they never intend to unpack. They say they should start that business, they should get in shape, or they should spend more time with their families. But here's the cold, hard truth. Should is a soft word. It is a preference wrapped in an excuse. It contains no urgency, no fire, and absolutely no commitment. When you should do something, you are giving yourself a psychological out. You are telling your brain that while the goal is nice, it isn't a requirement for your survival or your identity. This creates a loop of perpetual dissatisfaction because you know what you're capable of, but you aren't willing to pay the price to get there. Success only begins the moment you take that should and turn it into a must. A must is a non-negotiable command to your soul. It is the burning of the bridges behind you so that the only way forward is through the challenge. Think about the things in your life right now that are absolute musts: breathing, feeding your children, showing up to a job that keeps the lights on. You don't try to do those things, you find a way no matter how tired or frustrated you are, because failing at them is not an option. That is the level of intensity required to reach the next tier of your life. When something becomes a must, your brain shifts from why this is hard to how do I solve this? You stop looking for reasons to quit and start looking for reasons to win. You begin to operate with a level of certainty that intimidates your obstacles. This isn't just about willpower, it's about a fundamental shift in your internal standard. You have to reach a point where you are so disgusted with your current reality that staying the same is more painful than the effort required to change. You must decide that your current floor is no longer acceptable. When you raise that floor, your entire life begins to rise to meet it. Not because the world got easier, but because you became the kind of person who refuses to accept anything less than the vision you've set for yourself. The core of every human struggle is the gap between who you are and who you think you need to be to get what you want. Most people spend their entire lives chasing external targets: more money, a better body, a higher title, without ever realizing that you don't actually get what you want in this world. You get who you believe you are. Your identity is the invisible governor and the engine of your life. It is a self-imposed ceiling that dictates exactly how much success, love, or happiness you are allowed to experience before you start subconsciously sabotaging yourself to get back to your comfort zone. If you see yourself as a struggling entrepreneur, you will find a way to stay struggling, even if $1 million opportunity lands in your lap, because your brain is wired to maintain consistency with your internal map. Because your brain is wired to maintain consistency with your internal map. To change your results, you must first undergo a radical identity shift that precedes the evidence of your success. This shift isn't about affirmations or fake it until you make it surface level positive thinking. It is about a fundamental restructuring of your standards at the cellular level. You have to step into the version of yourself that already possesses the discipline, the hunger, and the resilience required for the life you desire. Most people wait for the bank account to change before they feel powerful, or wait for the weight to drop before they feel athletic. But the universe doesn't work that way. You must claim the identity of a leader, an athlete, or a high performer now while you are still in the trenches. When you change your identity, your behaviors follow automatically, because it becomes more painful to act out of alignment with your new self than it is to do the hard work. You stop trying to wake up early and start being the person who never misses a sunrise. You stop trying to be bold and start being the person who leads the room. Your rituals are the evidence of your identity. Every time you keep a promise to yourself, you are casting a vote for this new version of you. Eventually, the weight of those votes becomes so heavy that your old limited identity simply dissolves, leaving behind a person who no longer negotiates with mediocrity because that version of you no longer exists. Your life is not defined by the peaks of your greatest moments, but by the floor of your daily standards. Most people believe they will eventually rise to the level of their goals, but the reality is that you always fall to the level of your rituals. The threshold of control is the realization that while you cannot control the wind, the economy, or the opinions of others, you have absolute radical authority over the habits that dictate your baseline. This is where the battle for success is won or lost, not in the grand gestures, but in the small, repetitive actions that happen when nobody is watching. If your floor is low, if you allow yourself to hit snooze, to eat junk, to complain, and to distract yourself with trivialities, then you have set a threshold that guarantees mediocrity. You are effectively telling the universe that you are a person who accepts less than the best. To change your life, you must make a conscious, violent decision to raise that floor so high that your old self wouldn't even recognize the room. When you take control of your threshold, you stop being a victim of circumstance and start being the architect of your destiny. This requires an audit of your daily musts. What are the rituals that are non-negotiable? If you want to be a world-class leader, your threshold for preparation must be higher than anyone else's. If you want to be in peak physical condition, your threshold for nutrition and movement must be unshakable. Most people operate on a feeling basis. They work when they feel like it, they lead when they feel like it, and they are disciplined when they feel like it, but feelings are the most unreliable compass in the world. The high performer operates on a standard basis. They have a threshold of control that says, I don't care how I feel, I care about who I am. By tightening the grip on your morning routine, your work ethics, and your self-talk, you create a psychological fortress. You begin to build a momentum that is impossible to stop because you've removed the option of falling below a certain line. This is the ultimate power, the ability to command yourself to show up at a level that most people think is impossible simply because it is the only level you now allow yourself to exist within. The ultimate fuel for a human being is not pleasure, it is the unbearable friction of staying exactly where you are when you know you were made for more. Most people spend their lives trying to numbing the pain of their own mediocrity, using distractions, entertainment, and excuses to dull the ache of a life half lived. But if you want to reach the stratosphere of success, you have to stop running from that pain and start using it as a psychological thruster. Stagnation is a slow motion tragedy. It is the quiet rot of potential that occurs when you choose the comfort of the known over the glory of the possible. You must reach a threshold of disgust where the thought of being in the same position, with the same bank account, the same body, and the same limited mindset 1 year from today makes you want to scream. That visceral reaction is the birth of a new standard. Pain can either be a prison that keeps you small, or it can be the power that drives you to break through walls that others are too comfortable to even touch. When you look at the most successful people on the planet, they aren't driven by a nice-to-have goal. They are driven by an absolute refusal to settle for an average existence. They have associated so much massive pain to the idea of settling that they literally cannot stop moving forward. You have to make the cost of staying the same higher than the cost of change. Change is hard, yes. It requires sacrifice, sweat, and a relentless focus. But the pain of discipline is measured in ounces, while the pain of regret is measured in tons. If you don't raise your standards, you're choosing a life of what if, and that is the heaviest burden a human heart can carry. You must use the discomfort of your current limitations as a call to arms. Let the frustration of being overlooked, the exhaustion of being broke, or the shame of being undisciplined be the fire that lights your way out of the dark. When you finally decide that you are done being fine, you unlock a level of hunger that no obstacle can withstand. Success becomes a mathematical certainty when the pain of standing still becomes greater than the fear of moving forward.